What's up, everyone? I'm Derek Smith, and welcome to Tinseltown Tragedies, where we talk about the horrors of Hollywood, from curse sets to strange deaths, and everything in between. So if you got a minute, sit down, relax, and let's talk tragedy. Tonight, we're talking about Carl Switzer, or you might know him as Alfalfa of the Little Rascals. The boy's parents knew him and his older brother Harold had a knack for entertainment, singing, dancing, all that good stuff. The family picked up roots in 1934 and actually moved to California to give the boys a better opportunity for an acting job. Once there, the family took a tour of the Hal Roach Studios. After the tour was over, the family took the opportunity to go to the Open to the Public Cafe, or the Our Gang Cafe, where the boys, Carl and Harold, actually put on an impromptu show for the crowd. Everyone loved it. Everyone, including producer Hal Roach himself, who was actually in the cafe at that time. He was so blown away by the boys, actually gave him a contract. And in 1935, Harold and Carl got their first taste of acting in the Our Gang short, Beginner's Luck.
Yeah, why don't you put on a sheep herders? Then fighting word, partner. We're cowboys from the mountain. Huh, from the drugstore.
Oh, come now, son. Don't do those things.
All right, boys, follow me.
The boys did great in that first episode and actually tagged along on the Our Gang crew until 1940, when Carl was reaching his teens. And as often happens in Hollywood, teenagers can't play kids anymore. After leaving Our Gang, Carl had a hard time finding acting gigs, doing a lot of B movies, side movies, and a lot of characters that just didn't fit his persona. But nonetheless, Carl kept acting all the way until 1958, where he had a role alongside Tony Curtis and Sidney Poitier in the 1958 movie, The Defiant Ones. Unfortunately, that would be his last movie. Alcohol, depression, and no income put Carl into a deep depression, where he had to resort to dog breeding and dog training, which was a pastime he had. And he actually had a buddy of his, Moses Samuel Stilts, who was a good friend of his, longtime friend, and part-time business partner whom he'd met working alongside Roy Rogers. Well, Moses Samuel Stilts actually asked Carl to train one of his hunting dogs, and of course, Carl agreed he needed the money. But while the dog was in his possession, Carl Switzer lost the dog. He had to go back to Moses and explain that the dog had gotten away. Moses said, "You either pay me for the dog or you find the dog." Carl didn't have that much money to throw on a dog. So he put out a reward to anyone that could find the dog, and lo and behold, weeks later, somebody did find him. And Carl reimbursed that man with $35 and $15 worth of alcohol. He returned the dog to Moses and asked for a reimbursement of the $50 he had invested trying to get the dog back. Moses said, "Sorry, my friend, you lost the dog. That's on you." So Carl, once again without a job and down $50, turned to the bottle. Once leaving the bar, Carl decided to pack up his car and go back to Moses' house. And I know what you're thinking. All this for $50? But let's consider the inflation. That was 1959. This is 2023. That $50 is worth about $525 today. That's a lot of money no matter who you are. Once arriving at Moses' house, the heavy words turned into heavy hands and a fight broke out between the two, scuffling in the living room until Moses could finally break away from Carl's grip and actually retrieve a pistol from another room. Upon returning to the room with Carl had a knife in his hand and screaming that he was going to kill Moses. So, in that living room, Moses shot Carl. And on that day, January 21st, 1959, Carl Dean Switzer died en route to the hospital. But what's Hollywood without a little controversy? Years later, Stilts' stepson, Tom Corrigan, would claim Carl Switzer didn't come to that house alone. He actually brought somebody from the bar with him to help retrieve the money he had spent trying to find the dog. Upon entering the home, Carl and his unnamed friend, realizing their lives were in danger, fought with Moses, trying to remove the gun from his grasp. During this struggle, the gun was accidentally fired, ricocheting and hitting the stranger in the leg. Carl, realizing things had gotten totally out of control, tried to exit the house. Stilts raised the gun one more time and shot Carl on his way out. So I'll leave it up to you. Was it self-defense? Was it murder? Unfortunately, that's going to be lost to time. But this is an example of how the bright lights of Hollywood don't always mean a bright future. Well, that's it for this week's episode. If you enjoyed the story, you'll find me right here at Mediaverse Studios. Give us a like, give us a follow, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Tinseltown Tragedies.